All right.
You are listening to KMC Vibes, the voice of musicians in Japan.
All right, this is KMC Vibes coming to you courtesy of BLACKAN Radio. This is your host, DL. Today we are here in the studio, the special industry roundtable version of KMC Vibes, featuring members of the music industry here in Japan. I'd like to say welcome.
Hello.
Junya, John, April.
Hello.
Yes. April is joining us by Skype in Tokyo.
Live via satellite from Tokyo.
Yeah. How's the weather in Tokyo? It's a little cool and breezy here.
It's crisp outside, but very sunny.
Okay.
Quite pleasant. Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, I'd like to start out with a self-introduction from everyone. Please state who you are and what you do, and how you are connected to KMC. Let's start with Junya.
Hi, my name is Junya Okabe. I am a drummer, and also I happen to be an interpreter. In fact, the way I started my relationship with KMC was as an interpreter. But even before that, DL kindly called me for a couple of gigs to play for someone from the U.S. It was a couple of jazz gigs,
right?
And that was like more than 5 years ago.
Yeah, quite a while ago.
And a couple of years from that, I got a call from DL that he's starting this thing called KMC, which is a Kansai music conference, right? Yeah. And I was like, I had no idea what that was. But he said he needed an interpreter, so I started out that way. Mm-hmm. And I do have a day job as an interpreter, translator, and that kind of stuff. But I try to play jazz as well as pop as much as possible.
Is your daytime job connected to music?
No, it's not connected at all.
Oh, okay.
But it's even kind of better that way because
it's a real day job.
It is a real day job. It's a flexible one though.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of take advantage of that flexibility to pursue my music.
Cool. Okay. John, how about you?
Awesome. I am John Levy, and I'm primarily a solo artist here in Kansai. So I play acoustic guitar most of the time and sing, and I sing, try and sing my originals as much as possible, but I do cover gigs as well. And that's kind of how I met DL and knew about KMC, was through that. So I actually also studied music production and engineering when I was in college, so that's kind of my senmon. So I do that when I'm not performing, and that's kind of how it's for me at the moment. I don't have one day job. I don't have one job that kind of takes up all of my time. I have all these little tiny
little jobs,
little tiny streams of revenue that come in, and the emphasis is on tiny and many little things. And one of them is doing production work. Another one of them, I just finished up doing a really cool album where I co-wrote and recorded and also played like the guitar, the drums, the keyboards, and everything else on it. So that's what I'm doing when I'm not performing in live houses in Kansai or Tokyo occasionally. And then, I met DL at a KMC planning meeting, I think maybe 2 years ago. Maybe 2 or 3 years.
February last year.
Yeah. So I got to see, I got to help out at the KMC 2 years ago. And then this past year, I also helped out as a sound engineer, and also it was fun. I got to play at one of the
final
the last day of the show at the Hard Rock in Osaka at Universal,
right.
And I was also the PA guy, so I had to like set all my levels and then run up and play and make sure I didn't like have feedback going on. It was fun. Yeah, so that's my connection to KMC.
Okay, April.
Yes. Well, I reside in Tokyo. I provide artist management and development for a variety of Japanese artists in this area. I'm the booking manager for 2 live houses in Tokyo. I
And
edit
they are?
English. Well, of course. Booking manager for the Juka Joint, which is in Nishi Azabu. Focus there more blues or blues related, R&B, jazz, funk, soul, but we do some pop. And then also for Lotus, which is in Yotsuya, which is, your standard Japanese live house, mostly indie rock, pop. A bit of VK, things like that.
Okay.
I also edit English lyrics for anime soundtracks and also for some Japanese pop artists who are attempting to write in English.
Oh, really?
And I do a bit of promotion and kind of artist development with some major label artists also. So sometimes I work with EMI or Sony or Avex, things like that. I also do a little when overseas artists are coming to Tokyo, assisting them in getting some media there and some labels there and getting them booked into shows in the area. And for KMC, I went to KMC about 3 years ago and met DL. And so, of course, often when the artists are coming for KMC, he kindly calls me and says, hey, we have some artists they might want to play in Tokyo. Would one of your 2 venues want them? And I say, maybe. So.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the connections there in Tokyo.
Sure, no problem. Happy to help.
Well, I'd like to start things off with the first question. So today we're going to focus on 3 main questions. If we have time, maybe get to a 4th. But the main focus of today is to help musicians who are kind of looking for better way to promote, better way to play, and get their music out. So the first thing I'd like to start with is basically, can you define in your own opinion, what is the music industry in Japan? Me personally, I see the music industry. Well, most people see the music industry as the big major labels, the big companies. But for me, I see it as, pretty much not only the major labels, but also the independent labels, the music schools. If you don't have the music schools, then you that's who develops the musicians.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, but also the musicians. If there are no musicians, there's no industry. There's nothing.
Yeah.
True.
But before we move on to that, I'd like to welcome our last guest, Aaron Walker. Aaron, yes.
Hello.
He just came in from some other gig, so I'd like to say thanks for coming in. And
No problem. Happy
Aaron,
to be here.
yeah, please introduce yourself, who you are and what you do, and how you are related to KMC.
Well, my name is Aaron Walker. I'm a producer here in Japan. I moved here from America 11 years ago, and I was a television producer at Music Japan TV for 6 years, and now I'm a freelance producer here in Japan doing music production, television production, and event production.
Okay. And how were you connected to KMC?
KMC, well, I first met you, Dwayne, many years back here in Osaka,
Right.
in other endeavors, and when you put together the first KMC, we consulted a lot about how you could do that here, and I was so happy to see it take off from the beginning, and then I've been involved with it from its inception,
Right.
as
Okay.
a
Presenter.
guest presenter,
Right.
and
Panelist.
jammed with some bands sometimes.
Okay, so let's move to the first question. Since the quote unquote industry is, everything happens in Tokyo. I'd like to start this question with you, April. What's since you're in the middle of everything. We're in the outskirts
trickle-down
here.
Theory. Start with
Yeah.
Well, certainly, I agree. It's a combination of things. You have your major labels, your mid-level labels, your subsidiary labels, the small ones owned by the big ones. You have independent tiny labels, micro labels, publishing houses, musicians, live houses, live cafes. The fact that they let you play live in front of the station, your studios, publishing, retailers, of course.
But
so it's all of that.
Right, but for example, digital music taking over, of course, retailers and the CD shops, you can call them part of the music industry, but do they really have that much power as, compared to what they used to have?
If we look at Japan, CDs are still number one. Japanese people like to buy CDs. They love CDs. Digital music hasn't really taken so much of a hold here. First, the quality of a digital download sound-wise isn't quite as good as what they get on a CD, or that's what many people feel.
Right.
As well, a digital download doesn't have all that extra packaging. And Japanese audiences love something that's very aesthetic. They like the aesthetic package. And they also, the feeling is they really do, the audience is here. They like to support an artist by buying that artist's goods. So if it's the same CD repackaged 4 different ways, and by buying 4 of them, they get a chance to meet and greet and shake hands, they will do it. So I think that the retailers still have a big chunk of it. And I'm not sure that would ever change, unless, of course, what's purchasable is different. Maybe you get a digital download, but then in the mail you get a small package with an actual physical book, or you get the digital download and you get a coupon that you take to the live, and you get something from the goods counter, like as an extra bonus.
Okay, not asking for any boasting, but would you refer to yourself as part of the music industry?
Yes, I would.
Okay. And that is mainly through what area, would you say?
Mostly because I do artist management and development, as well as working with some labels, doing I guess maybe I do more artist development with independent artists, but then I do it on a small scale with some labels.
Okay.
So I would put myself in there because I do, most of my time is spent on that.
Okay. Let's turn the question to John. John, how about you?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think everything that April said and everything that you said, DL, like all of those elements are a part of the music industry here in Japan. I think we can all agree on that. And I think all of us in this room are some way related and can call ourselves a part of the music industry. The two things, well, one thing that I find really interesting is the fact that a lot of the live houses, yes, they do cater to artists and touring bands and professionals in their local areas. But the other thing is that really, and I don't know if there's any historical element that's built into this, but they're built up, and it's a neighborhood hang. It's a neighborhood hang where musicians can go and people who don't really consider themselves as professionals but want to play in a band, go and bring all of their friends for like nomi hodai.
Exactly.
And that's I'm not sure if that's where it originated, but that kind of seems to be the thing where all the promotion basically lies on the artist, as far as I know, for most live houses, and that might be the reason. So there's also that element of the industry that's kind of a part of the industry, but maybe those people don't really consider themselves professionals. And I've talked to some of these people who they don't really have the dreams of continue on
and
to be a professional musician. And I have these conversations, and they always ask me, well, do you want to be on a major label, and do you want to like sell out stadiums? And I go, yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm doing this. Like, I figure this is a way of paying my dues. But for a lot of those people, and there's more people like me in that circle who are using that as a stepping stone. But I find a lot of them are completely content with playing with their best buddies at the live house that they always go to every 3 months or every 4 months, and inviting all of their friends and family. And that's where...
And spending money to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Is like, yeah, they're spending money, and also they're making a little more of a profit because they see it as not a business and not as I'm a professional. They have their day jobs, and it's just a way for them to blow off steam.
Yeah, that I understand that, but for me, it's really frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And like, as an artist and as promoters and people who are trying to kind of get a leg up,
right,
it's really hard to go between that stage of like, okay, well, there's this live house middle ground that you kind of have to bounce
cross
around.
Over, right,
yeah, so that's really interesting and hard. But the other thing, I was talking to one of these live house owners in Kobe, and I've played there a handful of times, maybe every 2 or 3 months over the last 2 years. And he said, this is a really interesting thing, where the power structure with the old labels, the old record labels like Sony and Universal and all those big guys, it used to be that the live houses would have to go to them and beg them to bring their artists through.
Right.
But he says that because of what's happening with the internet and everything, it's actually flipped. And the live houses are getting bombarded by these bigger labels who are saying, do you guys have any artists that you can throw? Like, we need new artists. Who do you know that's like selling out your live houses? Can we grab those artists? Or do you have any ideas? Because we don't know what to do. So they don't really have content anymore. And so
they don't have the money either.
Yeah,
they don't have the money to send out a lot of A&R scouts to hang out at live houses and check for bands and follow them. Right. So they have to kind of rely on their friends who are managers or work in a live house, that they trust their judgment and say, who's a good band that happens to come through there. In Tokyo, I don't see so many people hanging out at live houses or choosing the same house all the time. Maybe because there's probably at least, I don't know, 20,000 live houses here. So on any band, on any Saturday night, there's probably 65,000 bands playing in the city. So nobody's really hanging out there like a neighborhood haunt, unless it's like a live music bar, which is something different. But certainly I can see the
Let's move to
allure.
Aaron. What's your take on this?
Sure. Well, as April said too, I don't think it's that they don't have the money for A&R. It's that they're not investing the money into building an A&R department. Because also, to what John was talking about earlier, the people coming to your shows and buying all the meals and food and everything, but not necessarily being part of the industry. I think that's a cultural thing here as well. I mean, in America, we have a little bit of that, but not to the extent of what it is
in Japan, right?
Here in Japan. So culturally, the way you go about promoting yourself and getting yourself seen here is very different than it might be in other parts of the world. You must, you can toot your own horn here, but kind of only to your group of friends.
Exactly.
And if you go above and beyond and talk about how good you are out in public to everybody, it's a turn off for people. As where if you don't do that back in the States, nobody's gonna come see you. And people come to see artists in the Western world because they're good and the quality of the music and the quality of the performance. People come to independent artists here in Japan not because of the quality of the music, but because of their friends and who they know. So that's a big difference.
Junior, what's your take on the
well, it's
music
very
industry here?
It's very interesting because I do happen to be a Japanese citizen here, having a day job, trying to play as much music as possible at night. But I see a difference between maybe pop rock type of gigs and jazz gigs, because as far as pop and rock, everything that you have said so far is pretty much true, I think. People want to hang. I don't know if there is so much regular hangs for people living in a certain area, but I do think there's a tendency that you can only ask your immediate friends or friends thereof to come over to your gigs. Otherwise, there will be no audience, basically. But that's really pop rock, who have not signed a contract with anyone, right? But when it comes to jazz, it's a totally different story because it involves a lot less people to be able to perform a jazz gig. for example, it's totally acoustic usually, right? So, frankly, we don't need engineers, right? All we need is a little place with a set of instruments,
a piano and a drum,
and drums.
upright bass.
Sometimes you even have to bring in your own drums, but it's so that means less money involved, and less money having to be paid to fewer people, which means smaller audience would suffice. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And that's not so difficult to handle.
And the other thing I just want to add is a lot of the jazz guys that I know can charge triple or like double or triple of what you would pay at a live house because it's a jazz thing. Because it's kind of seen as at least the circles that I know where it's like these are the people that have gone to amazing jazz schools in the States and everything, and then come back to Japan, and they can charge a little more, and I think it's kind of maybe because it's the genre that they play, and they have that degree behind them that says, look, I went to New York, look, I went to New Orleans, and I studied jazz, so I can charge more here.
Well, Junior, do you think that the music industry as far as jazz is the same as the music industry as far as like rock, and like that aspect of the industry is the same?
No, they're totally different.
Totally different.
Okay.
I agree. It's very different.
Yeah. Because one big reason for me to kind of switch from pop rock to jazz was exactly that. Being able to have more gigs
I see.
than I would
Right.
with rock.
If I can say, actually, and probably all of you know, maybe you don't, Larry Marshall, who moved back to the States. He was, when he was here, he was working at least 6 gigs a week.
He was taking away all the jobs.
And
Because
as a jazz drummer, that's great. But no other genre of music can you stay that busy here in Japan.
I guess not.
Right. I'd like to move to another question. In looking at live gigs, especially here, all of you in Japan. So what do you see the main difference as being a musician or the music industry for musicians here, for musicians living in Japan, compared to musicians who are touring, who live outside of Japan, coming in for a couple of weeks or a month or whatnot? I run a booking agency, and I have lots and lots of musicians contacting me, and I'm sure you as well, April, saying, we want to come over and, have a tour bus, and we want to, play 15 gigs in Tokyo, and we're going to have 100 people come to every show and every night. And I'm just like, wait.
Everyone is huge in Japan,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Everyone is huge.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Aaron, let's start with you on that.
Well, yeah, as I was saying before, at least in the pop rock world, if you want to do that, it's really based on who you already know here and your network that you have, the people that you can get to come out to your gigs. No way you're going to have 100 people coming to your gigs unless you have a whole promotional push in advance where you've got your tunes in heavy rotation on the radio here, if you've got your music videos being played on television here or used in a commercial, or you've got music videos in heavy rotation on one of the music channels, so people can become familiar with you and your music and really have a desire to come see you before you think of coming over here.
Right.
You've got to
do your homework.
Not only do your homework, but you've got to be able to come over here and have people outside of your circle to come see you. You have already had to make it big elsewhere in the world or in your hometown.
So the way you see it is musicians who live here already have their friends here.
Sure, easier to call your network.
Right, and musicians who live outside have to basically get their foundation and get their music known before they can draw.
And there are 2 ways of doing it. One is, sure, if you want to invest the time and the money, it takes time, and you have to come here to Japan multiple times, build your fan base, do great shows, have great press and great reviews, and build your network step by step, maybe once a year or once every 6 months.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
And Dwayne can help book you into places to start building your fan base here.
Right.
And the other way would be just stick to what you're doing at home where you are right now. You know, build up your following at home, build up your sellability, and then either if you have a management company already in America or wherever else you might be coming from in the world, have them approach to the companies here, such as press and any other media outlets, because a lot of times here, if you try to approach directly as an artist, you will be turned away.
Yeah, they'll look at you like, huh?
Yeah.
What do you want?
You must not have your organization together, because the artists wouldn't contact us directly. We'd be working everything here as a team, so they're going to be expecting to see something like that.
April, I'm sure you have a lot to say on this.
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, obviously, if you're big elsewhere, I mean, Lady Gaga didn't need to worry about, is anybody going to come see me? Because if you're huge outside Japan, then obviously the major label is going to be in connection with their arm here. They're going to book the shows. No worry.
Right, major label artists, they're
exactly
well taken care
no
of.
worry for them.
Right.
But for the standard folk, yes, there are the people that think, oh, my friend told me I could be really big in Japan, so I'm going to come over. Tell them an American's coming and they'll want to come see me. So you have that. But I do tell all the artists, it's going to take you 3 to 5 times of coming here before you ever really make any money. I mean, even before that, maybe you'll be able to pay for your ramen from ticket sales, but unlikely until then. You really have to network. You have to network with the bands that you play with. You network with the live houses that you play with. You are polite with them. And something actually I always encourage artists to do, especially if it's a solo singer that usually has a band where they're at, I suggest just come yourself and hire musicians here.
Right.
Because you, as, you know, Miss X, no one here knows you. But if you have a bass player and a guitar player and a drummer and a keyboard player that live here, they have friends and they have family. They're probably in other bands and they have fans already. And so hopefully at least you'll have at least 5 people coming to see you just by the sheer fact that your support band will invite somebody.
Sure.
I do think it's important, though, for promotion, and this is whether you're here or not. I do think bands do promote to people who aren't just their friends and relatives, and I do think it has to be done in Japan, but it's done a different way. They don't go up to strangers and go, I'm great, come see me, like they might in the States. But it is very important to be promoting to people outside your fan network, but usually here they're like, oh, we're a band, maybe you'll like us, we talk about love, or we talk about hope, or, you know, maybe you'll be friends, you know, and maybe you'll like what we're saying, and we hope you do. And come enjoy the day with us.
Yeah.
So they do it in a very low-key, mellow...
Japanese-ish.
Yes. But it's not that it's not done. It's just that it's done so low-key that it doesn't appear to be done.
Right.
However, I've seen a very interesting trend, not so much here in Kansai, but in Tokyo. Last time I was up there, some of the hip-hop artists and more street and underground artists are aggressively promoting themselves now. They'll be on the street. They will aggressively hunt you down and sell a CD right there on the street, or sell tickets to their next show, or sell their other products that they have, everything from clothing to hats to...
Those are Japanese artists?
Japanese artists.
Okay.
Whether the police department likes that or not.
Yeah.
Other products do that too. If it's a Friday or Saturday night and you leave Shinjuku Station, you can walk past 15 different live bands playing on the street, and they all have CDs and they all have merchandise and they all have people running around in the crowd handing out flyers.
Right.
And that's whether it's hip hop or pop or rock or jazz or acoustic, or, you know, the J-pop's girl with the guitar just singing about happy cheese tarts.
Right.
They're all doing that at this point.
Yeah, what I was mentioning is not just being street performers or street musicians, but aggressively recruiting new fans on the street, not even while they're performing or not even while they're doing a street show, but actually going out and grabbing people, chasing them down, blocking them and saying, look, this is my CD. It's really great. You're going to love it. I'm selling it 2,000 yen. Will you buy it? And last time I was in Tokyo, I saw a guy doing that so aggressively. I was really impressed by his. I was like, "Wait, this is how we would do it back home." But he was so. I appreciated his hunger. He was so hungry for it. So then I called up one of my friends at Inter FM there, and he was doing a radio show that I was invited on as a guest that day. And I said, "Can I bring this guy along with me that I found on the street because I really like his hunger?" And they said, "Sure." Okay. And brought him along, and then I said, "Okay, you're going to do a radio interview in English. Now, are you ready to step up to the plate?" But he did it. He did it. He made it through, and we had it. And we did the whole thing. I met him on the street, and then 30 minutes later, he was on the radio.
What a guy!
Quick English lesson.
Yeah, exactly. I said,
So yeah, that's actually a good point. So for musicians who are traveling from overseas, you have to have your stuff ready, business cards and other stuff. But the key is you have to have it in Japanese. You can't come here with all your stuff in English and expect people to pay attention, because they won't. John, what's your take on this?
That ties in perfectly to a thought I had earlier, and I wasn't sure how I was going to sneak it in, but this is perfect. So I mostly do, most of my originals are all in English, and then I have one song that's fully in Japanese, and I have one song that's got mix of, the verses are in English and the bridge and the chorus are in half Japanese. And every time I play, this one club owner up in Kobe goes, "That's awesome, John. That was a great performance, but if I want to get real with you here, dude, you got to write more Japanese stuff." So there's that element where it's like, if you really do want to become, have a sustainable career here, and you don't have, because a lot of the English artists that become, or the artists that sing in English that become huge over here, once they buy your CD here, it's got the translation of the lyrics and everything. So if you don't do that, then you're putting up an extra barrier between you and your potential fan of, well, I'm writing and singing in a language that you don't understand, and I'm not going to provide you that extra step of I'm going out of my way because I'm trying to come to your country, and here's a translation of the lyrics, even if it's completely rough, but as long as they can understand
the general
bit
idea
of it, yeah. So that's really important. And then the other thing that I've noticed is that in the States, or at least most of the bands that I've seen overseas in the States and in Australia, New Zealand, because I'm from Australia and New Zealand, is that it's about the music. And I was in Los Angeles for 2 years and Boston for 4 years, and when I was playing there, it was just like, shut up and play. And you let the music speak for what you're doing up there as an artist. And nobody wanted to hear the story behind the song. Everyone was just like, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. And if I really did care, I'll find out later. But I find that here in Japan, people are a little more intrigued with that. And it's also because probably most of the time, the people that are coming to your shows kind of know a little bit about you because you've networked through that friendship kind of... You've tapped into that. Right,
so they want to hear a personal story.
So they want to kind of hear a little more, and they want to identify with the guy that's up on stage. It's like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, now I know him a little better. I know a little more behind the story. Right. And then the other thing is, I play by myself, but I've also noticed this with other bands, is it's a fun show. And there's an element of comedic timing, and it's almost like manzai plus music. And it's really interesting that has to become a part of your show here in Japan.
Right. And for those of you who may not know manzai is a Japanese style of comedy with two people on stage, and they talk to each other on stage while the audience kind of watches in. So basically, as a musician on stage, you have to not only play music, but you have to, I guess, simply through conversation also entertain the artist.
So the thing that I kind of picked from why I say manzai is because there's kind of an element of slapstick in manzai, which I think needs to translate to and it kind of, again, it goes back to what you were saying, Aaron, about, artists here can't say like I'm the best, like listen to my music, I'm the best. It's like you have to say to the fans that have paid money to come see you, and the lights are on you, they've paid money to see you, so there's incredible amount of like respect, and you kind of put on this pedestal literally. But then I think that element of that slapstick, and it's kind of like this self-defacing humor where you put yourself down to that level of oh, but humbly I kind of give you this thing, like if you want it, you can take it, and that Japanese mentality kind of comes back into it.
Sure. Junior.
Well, definitely, you have a great point there, and especially that's so in Kansai. I don't know if it's so much true in Tokyo.
Here, you do have to talk, but it doesn't always have to be funny. Some bands are funny, but some bands are just sharing the story, or they're just talking about what they did earlier that day. How was rehearsal? And it's not always funny, but yeah, you have to make that personal connection.
Yeah, this is Kansai, the home of comedy.
The expected level of humor is really high. But seriously, I do think it's an important thing for you to be able to tell a story about not only each piece of music that you play, but also about yourself, how you established your career, and how you decided to come over to Japan to play. And like John was saying, it's always like a little gift whenever you find the Japanese translated version of your lyrics. And I do think it's a really important thing to have in your package. And I can guarantee you that back in the old days, the Japanese translation of those lyrics were really, really... I can't say.
This is coming from a translator.
Yes, I guarantee you. Do get a copy. I mean, do get a Japanese version. Even if a short, abridged version. As long as there's a story, you're going to get it.
Well, before I move to the next question, just a real quick comment from each one. So, for example, if you have a non-Japanese person who's leading a band here living in Japan, and they have Japanese band members, they, maybe even if they don't speak Japanese, their band members can translate, or their band members can say something in Japanese. They can have, the lead singer can stumble in their broken Japanese or whatever, and it can be funny. But for musicians who are coming from overseas and know no Japanese, what can they do to get that appeal to the audience? Just a real quick.
Sure. Well,
that's why you have Japanese support musicians.
Okay, Aaron's I'm sorry.
Good point,
April's idea is stay with the Japanese musicians. Aaron,
my advice would be connect with someone who's anchored here in the industry already, whether it be a foreign person such as us or a Japanese business partner that you trust, because not only the translation of lyrics, but you're going to want to consult with them about everything from packaging of product and presentation of product, because that's so important here, and of course the people that you have on the ground here are going to be your street team and do the promotion for you.
Right. John,
this is perfect because I just saw Paul McCartney a few weeks ago, and he had translation on the screen, which was I just couldn't believe I'd never seen that before. And instead of his set list, I mean, he had a set list out, but he had, I think, 4 pages printed up of local slang sayings, and he had rehearsed them before the show, and I understood everything in Japanese and I understood everything in English, and it made the concert so much more valuable, and I immediately respected him because he wasn't wasting his time with just saying English things, and he's like, Maido Okini Osaka, yeah! And it's like, okay, well, he can't do that in Tokyo, he can't do that in Fukuoka, so he's going to change it up, which immediately says to that whole crowd, like,
this is for you.
Yeah, and it's like the Spinal Tap joke of like, hello Cleveland! It's like, we're not in Cleveland. It's like, so you're immediately showing love to the audience, and if you go that step further, so if you're a foreign artist and you're not prepared to even just kind of learn maybe one catchphrase, then maybe you should be coming here,
Hey.
But it's really simple,
Junior.
Well, John basically stole the moment. All I was going to say about it was about Paul McCartney. But even if you haven't learned any Japanese phrases that would catch, I think as long as you keep it to really simple English, like words, word by word, then the audience is going to understand you. I'm always surprised at the level of understanding of a typical standard Japanese audience in front of foreign artists. So I wouldn't be surprised if you run just a couple of funny sounding English words. But once again, in a form of appreciation of how close you would like to get to them. That's always, as long as there's that motivation going on, I think it should work.
Okay.
Even if you say hello, haro.
Dude,
so it's just put in a little effort.
Last question that we're going to have time for is about promotion. So promotion has, with the disappearance of MySpace and the lack of meaning of flyers and basic total short attention span of everyone, what is the best way, in your experience, to promote not only live gigs but your music in general? Aaron just mentioned the promotion tactics. But for shyer people, or what is the best way? Start with Junior.
It's kind of difficult to say. One interesting example. This is kind of premeditated. It's sort of a far-fetched one, okay, and it's going to kind of take long. I happened to play drums to this jazz singer. It was my first time working with her, okay? And the gig went well. And after that, we became good friends, and we started exchanging mail and stuff. And somehow she started inviting me to rakugo gigs.
Rakugo is traditional Japanese comedy.
Yes. The performer being a distant friend of hers or something like that. And I got invited to a couple of shows in Asia, okay? And for some reason, I never made it to any of those gigs, unfortunately. But I kind of realized that maybe it was her way of trying to mix the two kinds of audience from two areas of entertainment. Especially because, I say this, the jazz gig I played with her had a lot of rakugo associated friends in the audience.
Yes.
So it was really like a mutual thing, I think.
Right.
And I don't think she was planning or calculating or whatever. She was a really sweet person and everything. But I do think it's one way working it out. Mixing.
Right.
Areas.
Different areas of entertainment.
Right.
Especially in Kansai area, being very well known for comedy. Sometimes comedy and music are interconnected.
Right. Right. I don't know if it will work so well if it was something like a combination of music and fishing, for example. Fishing is like an outdoor activity. It's not in entertainment. Because the last thing you want to be looked upon as is always looking out to invite your immediate friends to your own gigs. You don't want to. So yeah, this is definitely one idea I was planning I would bring up for this show.
Okay. Yeah, a common form of promotion which has been discussed already in Japan is bands have their own friends, their best friend. They invite them out to a show. And they, oh man, great show, this and that, and then maybe the next month that same email comes out, oh, come see us at the same venue, on this day, and then like, oh man, I just saw you, okay, I'll go. So they go a second time. Then the next month, another mail. It's like, okay, I just went, and I'm not gonna go again. So it starts to wear out, and a lot of bands tend to wear out their welcome with their friends. Aaron.
Yeah, with what Junior was saying, I definitely agree that I've found the best way of doing promotion here in Japan is get outside of your circle and expand. You already know everyone here in the entertainment industry, so stop reaching out to the same people again and again. For example, I have promoted artists here in Japan, and the most effective way of gathering new people to the gigs is going to something else. Like, instead of going to another live show with another band to promote, I went to a dance show instead, and then a lot of dancers came to go see the artist, go to Rakugo show, or go to I mean, fishing or something is kind of far, but still something where people want to go out and see entertainment.
Sure.
That's a great way of increasing your promotion. In addition to that, the tools to do self-promotion now have become free, basically. It's all up to what you have time to do yourself. If you don't have a budget to invest, it's all up to you. I mean, you have, of course, MySpace is not around anymore, but you've got everything else from Facebook to your own homepage to YouTube. So having first of all, focus on having a good quality product.
that was my next question, since you mentioned YouTube.
Focus on having a good. Don't put any crap up there, because nobody's gonna be.
But it's like people and you well know, people really can't differentiate between for themselves what is good. You know, I had someone send me a demo of them recording a song in a recording studio, and it sounded terrible, and I'm like, I can't show this to anybody else.
Yeah, I guess the way to differentiate, or how to tell if your thing is good or not, is play it for
friends.
Well, friends are often going to say, "Oh yeah, that's great. It's better than last time." But play it for some people that are a little bit outside of your close circle, and see how they, maybe you're at a party and you just throw it on in the background, throw the CD on the background. If 90% of the people at the party complain, "Hey, turn that crap off and put back Britney Spears," then you don't have it. Right. You might still have that thing in you that's going to someday make it, but you haven't refined it for for other people's ears yet.
But before I go to April, I want to make one comment that I've gotten, and I think a lot of people can't absorb this concept, but it has to do with mixes. So, for example, if you have, an acoustic version of a song that you just wrote and you're real happy about it, go back into the studio and do like a house music version of it. The same lyrics, same everything, but add in a house beat. And go to Shinsaibashi or some place and give it to a DJ and tell him, look, this is, put this on and see how the crowd reacts.
I am going to do that.
Really?
Please do, because it works.
Yeah.
If a song is a good song, doesn't matter if it's a house remix or country version or rock version, if the core of the song is good, it will work throughout all of the genre.
April.
I would... In Tokyo, so much more rock and pop is going on, so I certainly encourage artists, well, why don't you also do an acoustic or semi-acoustic version?
Sure.
Because it's really going to open up the places that you can play, so that you can pop in on those acoustic shows instead of only needing the expensive live houses.
Right.
As far as promoting, I definitely suggest they put up a Facebook page that's in Japanese. You can even do the paid promotion on that if you have the small budget. If you're using...
let me interrupt you there. Actually, Facebook will change most of the information into Japanese. If you put up your information, you're saying put up the information in Japanese. Is that what you're saying?
Do you know how bad that translation is, though?
Machine translation.
You don't even want that.
Okay.
So it's better to just put up, if you have, your Miss X page in English, then put up Miss X Japan.
Oh, okay.
And have it done actually in Japanese, because the translation is really poor. Plus, you might want to pop up different sorts of pictures or different stories that are more for the Japanese audience. So, like a band who is like super hot and sexy, and that's their claim to fame, that's not going to fly here. They're going to need to post up pictures that are more bright and cheerful and colorful.
Sure.
Yeah. So you want to kind of tailor for the market and what some of your sayings. But Facebook is good. Of course, Twitter so many people use Twitter, so start following some Japanese musicians and retweet them and commenting and try to get Japanese followers on your Twitter.
Right.
Again, if you're using Japanese musicians, you know, they ought to be posting on their blogs. They'll be posting on their Mixi, on their own Facebook page to their friends and neighbors. I always suggest also making a profile on a site like Audio Leaf, which is all Japanese bands, because there's a lot of algorithms in there that, based on plays, will toss bands up to the front page. So, and you're not paying for any of that, and then extra people will see you. It'll refer your music to people who play things that are similar to it. It can get you some gig offers. It can, you know, as people scroll through there, like the MySpace of old days when labels actually went through the site. and it provides, you know, we were talking about flyers, and there's a mid-ground where flyers don't work. But if you just do a few flyers and you're giving them out one-to-one, like when you're talking to your friends, hey, don't forget, we have some gigs coming up, that works. Or if you can afford to print 15,000 or 20,000 flyers, then that works. But the range between 400 flyers and 10,000 flyers is useless. You might as well just stick with 300
Very good
flyers.
point. Very good point.
So, but yeah, if you can do 15,000 flyers and you can distribute them in all the venues and record shops and as many places as you can go, and I don't know, train station bathrooms, then it's going to do some good. And make sure it's in Japanese and it has the Japanese website that they can go to that's in Japanese so that people can listen to your music. And that often works in getting some fans and friends out to the shows.
Okay. John.
Yeah, so because I focus on being an artist, a solo artist, so I have these little flyer things that work, and they're not specific to shows, and that's why it works, because basically I treat it as a huge meishi, so it's like a business card, but it's photo size, so it's an L printout, and I just print them at home on my printer, my photo printer, and I go to Yodobashi Camera, and I buy hundreds of these Fujifilm photo paper, so it looks like a photo, and it feels like a photo, but I'd plaster a huge thing of my face on the top and say johnlevymusic.com, and then underneath that I say Kyoto Umare no John, and I say folk pop, and that's it. And then I have the Facebook logo, the Twitter logo, and the YouTube logo, and those links.
Nice.
And that works only because I make an effort to give that out instead of my meishi, instead of my business card. And so, well, like one time I was in a jazz bar in Kyoto, and I went in for one drink, and I met someone, and he says he saw me as a foreigner and immediately wanted to test out his English. So he goes, "Oh, da, da, da." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, like your pronunciation is amazing. I want to continue this conversation, but I got to go catch a bus." And so I just said, "Oh, well, this is me. If you like folk pop music, I like James Taylor and Eric Clapton. If you like that stuff, check this out." And he did, and he's come to a few shows. And it's just little things like that that have worked. And then I went through stages of, once it was just the photo and the website, and that didn't really work. Because people,
it looks like you're trying to sell something.
Well, not necessarily. It was that people they were too lazy to go to the website, which is unbelievable.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but then you think about, again, it's like you want to try and minimize as many of those barriers that we put up.
Sure.
And so then I put on, I think I made it a little longer, and I had johnlevymusic.com, and then I had the Facebook and the Twitter and the YouTube logo, and I said social links like on the site.
Right.
And that didn't work. And so, like, it was still, like, so I actually had to get the big logos, the circular logos, so that people immediately see it and they go, I know what that is.
Circular logos of what?
Of Facebook.
Oh,
so
just make them bigger.
Yeah. So
the little icons.
So it's the blue Facebook icon. It's the Twitter icon.
You had Facebook written on there. Right.
Yeah, and it's the YouTube icon, so it looks like you can click on it, but it's a photo. But then underneath that, I have www.youtube.com
and the links,
John Levy Music.
Right.
Same thing for Twitter, same thing for Facebook. And then I've seen a boost in that. So it's like you really need to simplify it as much as possible and think of, like, I mean, I get handed stuff all the time where people are like, check this out, and there's not enough information. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not going to check it out. So you gotta automatically assume that people don't care who you are, how interesting you are. Like, you got to make it as simple as possible.
Right.
And then the other thing is YouTube has been another really great way that I've I've gotten new unique fans, and that's the key. Everyone wants unique fans. So how do you do that? So I post a lot of covers of I post a lot of my own videos of my original songs, but I've also done a few covers, and the covers that I've chosen haven't necessarily been like top 40. I've chosen a few. So I did like Paradise by Coldplay, but I mixed it up and I played it on like gut guitar. So it's like, wait, this doesn't make sense. So try and spice it up in some way. But the one that's had the most success, and it's up in the tens of thousands of views now, is I did a John Mayer cover, and I picked John Mayer because I know that guitar nuts are everywhere in the world, and specifically in Japan, guitar nuts are insane. So they're gonna look up John Mayer, and then I did the video on Philosopher's Walk in Kyoto. So it was people were looking up Philosopher's Walk in Kyoto and John Mayer and cover version, and spliced in between the video, it's me and my buddy sitting down with two acoustic guitars just on Philosopher's Walk playing. And then in between the video, my friend visited this time last year, and so he was from New York, and he was just playing tourists. So we went to Ginkakuji, we went to Kinkakuji, we went to everywhere. We went to Kiyomizudera, and I was shooting just DSLR video of all of those places and spliced it in.
Put them in the video, right?
So it's like, wow, pretty Kyoto. And it was just like, because of that, and then at the end of the video and the beginning of the video, I speak Japanese. So those things immediately people go, what? Okay. So they want to find out a bit more.
Right?
Yeah, and then it's just through people leaving comments or going to the website. Through that, it's just kind of a steady stream of a few people that are interested. So you got to find something that fits in within your niche and kind of, but you got to put like tons of stuff in there.
Yeah. We're about through, but I want to add one comment on promotion. At KMC, we had a workshop, panel discussion last year that Junya translated for, and one of the topics, the topic was promotion, but one of the points that Dale Campbell, guitarist, made was that when you put in keywords and YouTube key phrases or whatever they're called, add more than one language. So have it. You can have, for example, music. You can have it in Japanese, have it in English, have it in Arabic, and if you do that for all the keywords, you'll get more and more hits and views through there.
Then on that, you should also, your title of your YouTube video should be very simple. Lots of symbols and wackiness, like PS317, just name and title, because people can't find it.
Right.
And another cool tip is if you're on YouTube and Twitter, put your your Twitter handle in the title. So I have all my music videos say @JohnLevyMusic, so that when people who have their YouTube automatically linked to their Facebook, automatically linked to their Twitter,
and it goes all around.
So when they favorite a video, sometimes I get automatic notifications, and then that immediately gives me the in, because they didn't think that, it sent it to Twitter, but I got a notification on my phone, and I immediately write back and say thanks, and then all of a sudden that line of communication is open.
Sure. Let's final comments, about a minute each. If you have anything you want to plug, events or anything going on, feel free. I'll start with you, Aaron.
Well, yes, I'm available here. You can reach me at aaron@aaronwalker.com. A professional in the industry here in Kansai and in all of Asia, actually, but I live here in Kansai, and I can help you with your video promotion needs, video shooting, or event production here in Japan. Currently, I have several productions that I'm doing, but most of them are private gigs, so nothing to promote.
Okay. John.
Same. I don't really have any public shows coming up. It's mostly private parties, but I just put out a new video yesterday, and it's a cover, an original song, and then it goes into a cover of Ue o Muite Aruko. So it's also known as the Sukiyaki song. So that's another thing where I'm trying to like get people who know the English, and so that's one thing. And then in October, I think it was. At the beginning of October, the beginning of September, I forget. I released a new album with a fellow named Steve Fox, who's very well known in Japan as being the bassist for Godaigo, the rock band. So we co-wrote this album, and I recorded and engineered that, and it's on sale at discunion.net, and it's Disc Union with a K. They're an indie kind of label. It's on their indie label in Tokyo, and you can get it at Tower Records or HMV if you're in Kansai. But yeah.
Cool. That was the beginning of October, by the way.
Yeah. October.
Junior.
Yes, my most imminent appearances is going to be at this place called Maid's Dining near Keihan Hirakatashi Station. And we're going to feature this guitarist called Yu Okamoto, who is now based in LA, I think. And he has performed with the likes of Eric Maranzol, the saxophone player, who used to be in Chick Corea Electric Band. I'm pretty impressed about that.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're going to do a trio show at Maid's Dining near Hirakatashi Station, Keihan. That's going to be Tuesday. Did I say that? Next Tuesday.
Okay.
That's. Other than that, I'm going to show up at places like Holly's at Sanomiya Kobe, JB5 in Tarumi, Backstage in Sakasegawa, Brownie in Sekime, and all other places. So please check me out.
Okay. Thank you. April.
Yes. Anyone can contact me at my regular email, enter.idoru@gmail.com. That's INTER.IDORU@gmail.com. Upcoming December 14th, I have a charity show, Make Love, It's the Only Way, Volume 4, with the bands Kumi Hirata, Nejimaki, and Brothers and Manya. We're raising money for Philippines typhoon relief. If anybody is interested in finding out, they want to come to the show and support the cause and see great music, or if they want to donate some goods to be in our kind of lucky bag raffle, also raising money, that would be lovely as well.
Okay. And I'd like to throw in KMC will be doing some presentations, workshops coming up. First one will be January 18th. One audio advice, sound advice about audio and sound engineering. Keep an eye on the KMC website, www.kansaimusicconference.com. I'd like to thank all of our guests today, John, Aaron, Junya, and April in Tokyo. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Please spread the word about KMC and hopefully try to plug each other's business as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Cool. This was another edition of KMC Vibes. Today's special music industry roundtable. This is your host DL, coming to you courtesy of BLACKAN Radio. Peace.